I am Assistant Professor from Department of Electronics from Walchand Institute of Technology, Solapur. So, today we are going to have a session on relational database and keys. After the end of this session, student will be able to describe basic structure of relational database and database keys. What is relational database? Relational database comprises of tables. Data is stored in the form of tables. You have different columns, you have different rows. The data is stored systematically in the form of rows and columns in a table. Columns are called as an attributes and rows are called as an tuples. In each table, you have a primary key which will be uniquely identifying a row in a table. Consider a manufacturing relational database. You have customer ID as a primary key which will uniquely identify a record in a table. Also, you have different parameters like name, address, phone numbers. Additionally, one more example, you have order ID as a primary key. You have different parameters like product, customer name, price, and so on. So, relational database is nothing but data is stored in the form of tables and you have the data in the form of rows and columns. There is one single attribute can be defined as a primary key which will be uniquely identifying a record or information in the table. Structure of relational database. As we know, relational database data is stored in the form of tables. So, each table should have a unique name. Table is also called as relation. So, the name of the relation should be unique. Each table consists of multiple rows. So, you can have data in a multiple rows and in a multiple columns as well. So, columns are referred as an attributes and rows are referred as tuples. So, you read the data or you record the data in the form of rows. Each attribute of a table defines a set of permitted values for that attribute. This set of permitted set is called as a domain of an attribute. Example of domain is a set of attribute values for one or more attributes. So, consider you have a relational database for the employee and department. You have three attributes. First is the employee ID, you have the employee name and you have the employee's department. So, you can see the names are James Potter, Ethan McCarthy and Emily Rayner. So, they belong to the ICP, ETA and ETA department. So, here the primary key is the ID. Employee ID is a unique, it will be defining the information in a row. And about the domain, domain is a set of allowable values for one or more attributes. Here, the domain specified for the department attribute is ICP and ETA. So, whatever data you entered in the department column, it should be among the specified set. So, only ICP and ETA are allowed to be entered in the department column. If you try to enter apart from these two values, the SQL might throw you an error. So, domain is a set of allowable values which should be given to an attribute. Next concept is of key. See, key plays a very important role in a relational database. It is going to uniquely identify a row or a record in a table. Also, you have to establish a relationship between the different tables. As in relational database, data is stored in the form of different tables. So, two or more tables, they can be related using some keys. So, types of keys are primary key, candidate key, super key and the foreign key. Let us see keys one by one. First is the primary key. This is a table of the students belong to the different branches like CS, ENTC, electronics, etc. So, if you see the table, you have here Adam name is twice. So, if I ask to fetch the email ID of Adam, if you see there are duplicates of Adam. So it becomes very difficult to fetch the email ID of which Adam I am talking about. So in this case, if I assign SID, which should be a unique value, and it will identify each Adam's details. So that I referred it as SID. If I say SID is in primary key, so Adam who is a CS student is assigned SID 2, Adam who is an ENTC student is assigned 3, Emily and ELN is assigned 4. So each and every student, irrespective of their department, they are assigned some SIDs which are unique, and they are going to identify the records in the table. So there are few prerequisites for the primary key. The primary key should be unique, which will be identifying the information in the table. It should be a unique value. And the next says primary key cannot be null. And the third says every table should have only one primary key. Now let us see about the foreign key. So what is foreign key? Foreign key are the columns of the table which are used to point the primary key of the another table. See, as you can see, so there are two tables. First is the employee table and second is the department table. So employee ID in employee table is a primary key, and department ID in department table is a primary key. So primary key is a unique value, it should not be null, and you have only one primary key in each table. So you can see department ID is referred by an arrow in the employee table, and you can see employee ID is in the employee table. What does this mean? See, I can tell you the concept of foreign key with a very simple example. You are a citizen of India, okay, and you are going to foreign or abroad for some vacation or a trip. In India, you are the citizen of India, but when you go on a vacation to another country, you become foreigner for that country's citizen. Okay, in India you are an Indian citizen, but when you go back to the abroad, you become foreigner for that country's citizen. The similar concept you try to correlate here in the table. See, department ID in department table is a primary key. When it is referred or goes into the employee table, it becomes a foreign key. So there are no such rules as that of the primary key. Foreign key can have null values. There can be more than one foreign key in every table or each table, you can say. And foreign key can accept duplicate values. So this is the opposite or contrast of the primary key. Next concept is of the super key. The term super key is defined as either a single attribute or a group of attributes that can be used to uniquely identify a row in a table. Here in super key, what happens is that you can have single or a group of attributes that can be combined together to form a super key. If you refer this table, you have student ID, student SSN and student name. So what are all the possible combinations of super key? You can have student ID as in super key alone. You can have student SSN alone as a super key. You can have combination of student ID and SSN. Also you can have student ID, student name as an SSN. Also you can have student ID and student name as a super key. You can have student SSN and student name as super key, or you can combine all the three together. Next is the candidate key. The term candidate key is defined as super key with minimum number of attributes. So you have seen now super key, that is all the possible combinations of attributes, but whichever is minimum can be referred as candidate key among the super key. So here you can have a student ID. So here you can have student ID as a candidate key or student SSN as a candidate key. Any of that is relevant. You can have example of candidate key. You have a table with columns, operators, plans, amount, recharge type. So you can see the operator Airtel is repeating, or there is a duplication of data. Here also there is a duplication of data. In plans also you have duplication data, in amount also you have duplication of data. So you cannot have a primary key in this table. So in whichever table primary key is not possible, in that case you can go for candidate key. So you can combine one or more attributes and you can form a candidate key. So here in this table, if you combine operators and plan, that can form a candidate key. This is a schema diagram for university database. So you have here different tables like section, classroom, teachers, time slot, takes, course, prerequisite, instructor, department, student, advisor. Different attributes whichever are underlined, they are referred as a primary key. And the foreign key are given by the arrows. So you can see course ID is primary key in the course table. It is also referred in the section table. Arrow pointing to the referred table. So course ID is referred from the primary table, that is course ID. Course ID is referred again into the section. So foreign keys are referred to the referred table through the arrows and primary key are the underlined ones. Think and write. A dash is the minimum combination of one or more columns, values in a table that make a row of data unique within the table. Pause the video and answer the question. Answer to the question is candidate key is the answer. It is a set of attributes which uniquely identify the rows or the tuples. References are taken from Database Systems, Concepts by Koth and Fundamentals of Database Systems by Ramesh Ilmasi and Shamkan B. Naute. Thank you.